The theme job in Shadowbringers is the Dark Knight. The call to action for the expansion is to bring back the darkness. Yet for some reason, when it comes to the Dark Knight, they aren't at the top of the charts when it comes to their DPS. I mean, what the hell, Square? An entire expansion with their face on the logo! And you don't even spoil them a little? I mean, god damn it. Hi, I'm Sinkweaver. Ever since Heaven's Word, I have not stopped putting Dark Knight at the top of my list of priorities. We have Heaven's Word, which was arguably its best iteration, Stormblood, which had our low blow taken for the exchange of not having an AoE shield, which promptly put them at the back of the bus, and no, it's not because they're black. And finally, Shadowbringers, where he's in a pretty good spot. Not so significantly bad that no one wants to play them. In fact, people are starting to play the Dark Knight. But where my problem lies is how it's basically a totally different job. You see, I like complicated jobs. Dark Knight, Astro, working in a call center, and Dark Knight was not a simple job back in the day, needing to manage your mana for Dark Arts, Blood for Bloodspiller and Quietus, which sucked at first. You remember that? Useless no MP gaining Quietus. That was really stupid. It was just about as bad as Total Eclipse, which, till the patch, or, Shadowbringers, it was, now it's good. Yeah. Paladins can quote me on that. TP was never really a problem, and now it doesn't exist anymore, and all around keeping the hate while not dying. To say they were squishy was an understatement to those who didn't know how to use them optimally, and for people like me, they were edgy McEdge joy. Edge. Now, I can sit here and be all super serious about this guide, but I can't start this guide without a little history about my boy the Dark Knight. They are a tank class with a BFS strapped on their back. What's a BFS? Well, a BFS is a big fucking sword. Their credo is to take care of the forces that bring injustice to the world, whether it's someone high class, low class, or seemingly important. Basically, if you're a person who is supposedly on the side of justice and has become corrupt, but is protected by legal means, the Dark Knight is here to deliver justice. Usually by decapitation. The BFS they have is not just a weapon they use in combat. Like, seriously, who in the right mind would use a weapon this big? You can hardly swing the thing, but I digress. The sword is a symbol of the weight they hold on their shoulders, bearing the responsibility of dishing out justice upon the powerful while protecting the weak. Basically, they are the judge to the judges, police to the police. They don't take shit from no one, and neither shall I. Meaning, I don't care if you're used to tank healers north, we have 4 melee DPS, we're doing tank healers south. Okay? Alright? It's a fucking fairy. I've done this at least 20 times. Come on. We've made it to Enrage, for crying out loud. But whether or not they have cool looking blades on their back, the fact that they must be in the most edgy of armor is an absolute rule to all Dark Knights. It's a fact. It gives you a 5% damage boost, I swear. So let's talk about the Dark Knight's abilities. Now, the game will do an absolutely good job in teaching you how to use the Dark Knight from level 30 up, but understanding good use for them is the tricky part of mastering them. The 1-2-3 combo is comprised of Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, and Soul Eater, a combo that gives MP through Siphon Strike, which will be your best friend, and heals through Soul Eater with 300 potency, picking up the damage with your OGCD, aka your off global cooldowns. And it is here where you may find Dark Knight to be a bit slightly, slow? You see, Dark Knight had this little problem with a certain skill called Dark Arts. One would use it for just about damn near everything. A better Soul Eater, a better Siphon Strike, a better Blood Spiller, Quietus. Everything needed this button to be pressed, and some found it quite annoying. So how they fixed it was by removing the button altogether and placing the effect in a barrier called the Blackest Night, which we're all too familiar with. Your always on stance, Darkside, has also seen its fair share of changes, meaning they took that button away too, and placed its effect into new skills, Flood of Darkness and Edge of Darkness. These skills upgrade in potency and title at higher levels, becoming Flood of Shadow and Edge of Shadow, and believe me, you will be using these skills as though you are popping steroid pills down your throat. Don't do drugs. The usual Dark Knight will always keep an eye out for these three things: your MP staying above 3000, blood being used as soon as it hits 50, and your main three abilities that grant you resources and DPS, them being Blood Weapon, Delirium, and Living Shadow. These skills have a 60, 90, and 120 second cooldown on them in that order, and you will be making sure that each one will get popped as soon as they are available or when you're ready to do burst damage, meaning you will keep blood for Living Shadow and Delirium as backup just in case, or set yourself up to have 50 blood as soon as the cooldown times are done, using Blood Weapon as soon as it resets to have some MP gain, since Dark Knight no longer has the skills for MP management like it used to, and putting on the Blackest Night so to use Dark Arts, and to increase not only Dark Side through Flood and Edge, but also keeping up DPS with a free Blood or Edge. You see, Dark Arts allows Flood or Edge to be free when obtained, and the only way to obtain Dark Arts is to have your Blackest Night barrier to be broken by whatever damage you can take. So basically, tank busters in controlled environments. As you may have guessed, yes, Dark Knight did indeed become less complicated if it ever was complicated. You see, due to how Dark Knight was used in the past, people have been wanting a change to the job for some time. So they integrated Darkside into an attack for a buff cooldown, turned Dark Arts into a free attack, or some sort of counter, and somehow missed the fact that they don't have a strong high potency hit like the other tanks. I mean, seriously, Paladin, which used to be lower than Dark Knight in DPS, is now over it with its new MP management, magic attacks, and goddamn Confiteor. Warrior got mellowed down, but it still has Fellcleave, and now they have something called Inner Chaos, where they do 920 damage in potency. Gunbreaker is OGCD the job with a skill called Continuation, and a big but for some reason only hits a single target skill called Blasting Zone. Seriously, that thing looks like it could hit things behind it. And Dark Knight has a slow burning shadow, which looks cool. Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, essentially, you can play all jobs as burst when it comes to damage. Even the Dark Knight can burst right out the get-go. But when downtime hits for them, downtime hits for like 30 to 40 seconds. Granted, they also have some pretty okay OGCDs, but nothing like the Gunbreaker, which has 2 dots and a continuation. They have a pretty good mitigation thanks to the Blackest Night, which is arguably the best mitigation, arguably. Damage can be sustained, but you really do need to manage your MP for DPS opportunities. So the Blackest Night is still your best friend, and now it's needed for damage. A 15-second recast barrier was good enough, but now it acts like a goddamn counter, which means every time you put up that shield, you better damn well have it broken in like 8 seconds, cause if not, that was sort of a waste of MP. Sort of. I mean, you still have mitigation, so it wasn't entirely a waste. And look, I'm not trying to rag on the Dark Knight. I mean, for goodness sake, I have a tattoo of the Deathbringer on my arm. Do you know how dedicated I am to this job? I'll be the first to defend this man if someone said they're useless in any trial or raid, and I might be tooting my own horn here, but I think I may be the perfect Dark Knight. Not because I'm black. They have this feel of being more mellow as a tank, without looking like a savage barbarian, or a glorious pompous knight, or a guy that looks like they need more equipment on them other than a gun glued onto a sword and really looking cool in a jacket. Though Dark Knight has this edgy thing going for them, at least they make that shit look good. I mean, look at this. But I want to be serious here for a bit. So the Dark Knight has now become one of the easiest jobs to use due to how much slower they became, and by slower, I mean taking away the Dark Arts button. You can safely do Flood and Edge as long as you stay above 3000 MP. This is because, as said before, you'll need it for the Blackest Night. You can also use Blood Weapon one more time before using Living Shadow after its first use. Kind of gives you a range of how to control both blood and MP. By all means, everything works as intended. The struggle is to maintain constant damage while waiting for Delirium, Blood Weapon, and Living Shadow to be used again, while balancing MP with blood usage as to not overcompensate for either resource. And as soon as any skill becomes available again, use them! Also, whenever you have 6,000 or more MP, that's a good time to use Flood or Edge. In some cases, however, you'd wait for Blood Weapon and Delirium to be ready at the same time due to burst damage, and that's a good idea, but that's a 30-second wait, and some people aren't that patient, so really that's up to you. Honestly, it's about timing and resource upkeep for Dark Knights. They are still pretty good, especially as main tanks, seeing as damage can proc Dark Arts off of a tank buster or a hard hit. This means the Blackest Knight will be your counter ability and everything else will have to work around it. Blood Weapon is your combination of an overdrive and refueling, as you can use it with Delirium for more chances to use Flood or Edge in between Blood Spiller and Quietus. Obviously, using an OGCD in between your Delirium burst is a must, so don't hesitate to use Plunge in between. Living Shadow is regrettably uncontrollable. You are at the mercy of whatever it does when it comes out, and after 5 seconds of just waking up, you get 15 seconds of Fray. However, and this may be the most controversial thing in this video, I think Dark Knight could be better, and I also think Living Shadow can be much better. As it stands, and we're getting to more serious notes here, Dark Knight is slower and feels more situational as you play. You can use Flood or Edge as much as you want as long as you have the MP, but you guzzle mana down by the loads with any MP skill. Blood Weapon loses out in attack speed for pure MP and blood gain, as before it had a sort of haste effect in prior patches, both restricted to weapon skills and having a recast up to 60 from 40. This again restricts MP a bit, but Blood gets a sort of gain from this, an overall hit to Blood Weapon in my opinion. The Visual Drain has a recast of 60 seconds, so it can't be spammed no more for health like it used to, but it still does what it needs to do every 60 seconds. This makes survivability a bit hard due to the nerf, but it offers a pretty okay OGCD skill. Now Plunge, having a charge, is good, and I'm sure most would use it for a variety of situations. Some save it for burst, but for now, Plunge got better in my opinion. One glaring thing is the MP gain from Quietus being much less than before. Where one would get loads back in mobs, now it's a base 600 MP and 600 more with Blood Weapon. Blood Spiller also has a base of 200 MP plus 600 with Blood Weapon as well, but the MP gain by itself is still a bit poor. Quietus gains more, but lacks strength as a trade-off, and using Blood Weapon here can make for a great situation where Flood or Edge is used quite a bit between GCDs. However, the recast times being all over the place with these three may have you either waiting for burst or just using the skills as soon as they come back, as said before. Living Shadow, which thematically looks cool and lore-wise makes sense, doesn't really satisfy me since all I really do is throw it out whenever I get the chance. It doesn't change if you have more than one mob on the field, meaning it'll target one mob and it usually sticks to that one target. He doesn't really change his rotation, as it pretty much does the same thing every time you summon him, and not being able to control him does make sense universally, since Fray or your Inner Darkness fights you to take control of your own body, but being able to control your ability game-wise is something to be desired. Living Shadow has been deemed to be a burn or a glorified dot, and functionally that makes sense, but again, he uses your abilities and there's nothing you can do to control that. Instead of this, why not allow a sort of copy function, where Fray will copy everything you do as soon as you click the ability with the same effects and potency. Dark Knights do not have a big FU move like the other tanks, so why not give that to us? I mean, potentially 10 or 14 Blood Spillers seem to be a good replacement. It's a good idea, right? Now I know that may be a bit much, but we only have Fray for 15 seconds with a 120 second recast, so I'm sure that can make up for its DPS downtime. Delirium is a confusing one. Not sure if the recast should be changed, but I think it's this way so we don't spam Blood Weapon with it. It would make it better if they were the same recast wise, but I think they don't want that. For those who are wondering what I mean Blood Weapon plus Blood Spiller and Quietus would gain more MP faster, which means more chances of Flutter Edge, of which I think they made the current design of Dark Knight like this, as though to make these skills here very precious to have while having a sort of steep cost, meaning no spamming Flutter Edge please. But if I were to change anything, it would be the MP usage. Not just for Flutter Edge, but the Blackest Night as well. 3,000 is an odd number for a 10k MP pool. 2,500 would be better in terms of usage, at the very least. Though even that won't stop other Dark Knights from expending too much MP. Although, as it stands with AoE attacks, I really like it. Unleash to Stalwart is quite fun. I find myself doing a lot of damage, stabilizing MP, and gaining blood quite well with it, so I have no real complaints. You can also weave in OGCDs like Flood and Living Shadow, but as said before, Shadow will still have the whole single target problem. Just make sure your MP is being used carefully and not overcapping. I would, however, implore that a visual be knocked down to 30 seconds for survival, and I know healers are supposed to be our HP control, but paladins have a cure in their arsenal, and warriors have a 1200 cure potency button, not to mention an enhanced thrill of battle which raises their self heals by 20%. They also have something called Nation Flash, and well, just look at this, it's basically a cover that heals per damage. The irony here is that it kind of reminds me of Blood Price, an ability Dark Knights had where they gained MP per damage, Blood 2 later on, and now it's like Baby Warrior whined at Yoshi P because they didn't have a cover or a Blood Price, and Yoshi P just up and took the Dark Knight's ability, changed it, and plopped it into Warrior just to shut them up. Gunbreakers are pretty much in the same boat as us, but since they're more about damage rather than mitigation, I don't think it matters to them all that much, although they do have a regen called Aurora. I wouldn't count it as good as the Paladins or Warrior with what they have, or Visual Drain when it comes to big groups of mobs. But at the end of the day, it does not matter which tank you choose, because even if Gunbreaker seems like they have the highest in terms of damage, or if Paladin seems like it's a one-stop show for the best main tank or off-tank support, or if Warrior seems like they have become even more efficient, all tanks have similar damage outputs, according to FF logs, and that's just random people putting up information for those who wish to know and compare notes. In the end, it does not matter which tank you choose. They all have something that makes them unique, each with a flaw and something that makes them better. Warriors are just amazing at survival, even though they depend on the gauge the most. Gunbreakers flow so smoothly from one skill to another with great offense, though they do, in my opinion, have lacking mitigation. Dark Knights are the most steady, making them a good option for main tank or off tank. Their Living Dead still sucks though, even more so than Super Heart Attack Bolide. And Paladins, they have everything? Wait, do they even have a flaw? Their gap closer is a few years late, but overall Paladin's looking pretty sweet right now. There is an overall bias here due to me wanting Dark Knight to have special treatment because, you know, the expansion has them on the cover, but I like the fact that tanks aren't too far from each other in terms of damage, and that they each play very differently in terms of style. Though all of them do burst damage when it comes to DPS, funny enough. I love Dark Knight, and I'm sure others may overanalyze their jobs too. A bunch of people actually see my complaining to be purely negative, but that's far from it. I just want to see the Dark Knight shine in the expansion that features them on the cover. In the past, I had plenty of complaints about the fact that they didn't have an AoE shield like Shake It Off or Divine Veil, but I still stuck with them. Now that they have something and aren't a busy mess like before, I will say Dark Knight feels good, more inviting, and very thematic, and I hope they'll continue to be fun and interesting for people who get into them. But herein lies the question. What do you think of Dark Knight? Is it fine the way it is, or would you change some things? Is it better? Is it worse? I don't know, but I like to know from you guys. Hey, thanks guys for watching the video. I know it's been a while since I actually posted anything up involving the Dark Knight, but I hope you enjoyed what you saw. And as I said before, if you guys want to leave your comments, please do it down below. Also, I'm going to name drop Last Order Films because he put out a Dark Knight video before I did, but I think I did mine's better. Anyway, I hope to see you guys in the next video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm also on a whole bunch of other streaming platforms other than YouTube. So you can go to Twitch, you can go to Mixer, you can stay here. I don't care. Anyway, hope you guys will support me throughout my journey as I go from a guy who works into an office to a person who makes videos and plays video games all day on stream, entertaining you guys. Hopefully, you know. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.